Hi guys, welcome back on the channel. On today's video, we're going to have a quick flip through of my Baron's War campaign rules. It's a campaign rule set I've been working extensively for quite some time, and I think the rules are going well. Obviously, I haven't playtested them yet, and obviously these rules can be used for any theatre of war. But let's have a quick look, and if you manage to stay and watch the whole video, I would really appreciate your feedback. So, Baron's War campaign rules. So let's start with the campaign sequence, so we have an idea of what we're to expect. So obviously the timeline is up to you, but for my case, I will have 1 week will be one round of initiatives. So all the armies will move and all the actions will take place from both players. Campaign season is from March to October, usual campaign season of the medieval era. The campaign timeline depends on the month it starts. So if the attacker rolls June, for example, in the weather roll, and we'll see what this means, the campaign will last for 4 months. There will be 16 turns. And then you have winter, you do some actions for the winter, and then the campaign starts again. So first you roll for defender's reaction time. Don't worry, we'll explain this in the next cards. Attacker rolls to determine the starting month of the campaign, and the defender rolls for weather. Continue rolling every new week, that means every initiative, new initiative, and check the weather table for movement restrictions, if any. Now draw activation card from the deck and perform actions with your armies, maximum 3 actions. These actions can be moves, attack, group your armies, scout, as you can see here, rally, and build siege engines. Then check your supply lines and accordingly roll on health and provision charts for sieges, 4 weeks without supplies, and for standing armies, 3 weeks without supplies. Check your mutiny factor, when equal to triple the army's morale factor, and roll for mutinies. Every end of the campaign season, roll for revolts. Every end of the campaign season, add new recruits from owning player settlements. Calculate victory points in every round, check victory conditions for every round. There are specific objectives, and then you go to a new initiative at the start from the top. So let's go to the next page and see what do I mean. So first you decide who's the attacker and who's the defender. This is scenario based. Then the defender rolls for reaction time as per below table. So if you roll 1, you have 2 weeks of delay before you obey orders, so the defender takes some time to organize his armies. If you roll 2, it's 1 week delayed before obeying orders. That means your opponent has 1 week of actions. If you roll 3 to 6, the orders are obeyed immediately. Then you roll 2d6 twice to determine the starting month of the campaign and the weather as per below chart. I will show it to you. The attacker rolls to determine the starting month of the campaign, and the defender rolls for weather. Continue rolling every week, every round of initiatives finishes, and check the weather table for movement restrictions, if any. So let's go here and see this is the weather table. And so let's see an example. Rolling a d6 here on the left, you can see each defender rolls a 7. An attacker rolls an 11. This would mean that campaign starting in the month of November, and the weather is fair. So let's see here, you see the X here over November is the 11th month after the attacker rolled 2d6. The 7 here goes down. Here you can see on the left the X mark, and then where the 2 column and line connect, you see the square, it's a circle with dotted lines, and you go to the weather chart, and the weather is fair. Now every initiative or so, every week, you will roll for possible weather changes, as you can see here on the top, on the bottom right, as per below chart. So when you roll 1 and 2, you move the marker down 1 space. 3 and 4, no change, and 5 and 6, you move the marker up 1 space. So if we roll a 5 and 6, the marker will go up, as you can see. I hope you can see my mouse cursor, or it will not change. So let's go and see, as weather changes, so does movement of forces. A light rain might dampen spirits, but generally has little effect on movement for the first day. If it persists, however, dirt roads gradually turn to mud and troops are slowed on subsequent turns. Heavy rain has a similar, though quicker effect. Snow and extreme heat can bring a campaign to an abrupt halt. Fair weather is for what all generals hope, but the weather does not always support a side. The weather movement modifiers are referring to actions, so -1 means -1 action during activation. So let's say we have light rain. You see here in the column of day 1, there is no restriction. In column of day 2 is -1 action, day 3 the same, day 4 -2, and day 5 you stop. In heavy rain, this comes faster. You have -1 in day 2, and you stop in day 4. Snow or heat, -1 immediately the first day, -2 the second day, the third day you stopped until the weather changes. And for fog, you not really never stop, but you always have less actions because of visibility. Now let's go and talk about activation. So we draw an activation card from the deck. This is from Blood and Crowns rules. And this can be done obviously with any type of dice or any kind of table you want to create. The player who draws the card that has initiative precedence will be the active player. When actions are completed, the inactive player becomes the active player and performs his planned actions. So it's I go, you go. Draw from the card deck for every army on the map until all armies have performed actions. When all armies from both sides have been activated, the next initiative starts and you finished all the remaining action things you have to do in the campaign. So the card priorities, as you see, you've seen it in my Blood and Crowns rules. You have the spades, the hearts, the diamonds, and the clubs, and depending on the quality of your troops, you perform 1, 2, or 3 actions. Depending on a unit's experience, you perform a specific number of actions, dictated by the card you have drawn. So here, this is an example. Let's assume that you draw from the activation deck the 7 of diamonds. An inexperienced army can perform 2 actions. As you can see here, it's mentioned in the Blood and Crowns deck. A trained army 2 and a veteran army 3. The maximum number of actions permitted for every army is 3, regardless of the actions allowed by the card. A trained unit draws the 7 of diamonds and can perform 2 actions. The commander activates the unit twice and makes 2 moves, completing the permitted action as per the card. But the commander is 2 hexes from an enemy unit and he wants to send his scouts to report back to him. This order requires an action to be spent. Although the commander has completed his 2 actions, he still has 1 pending action to reach the maximum of 3 actions permitted. To do this, he has to push his unit force march, making them fatigued, but performing the 3rd action not permitted by the specific card. When the unit becomes fatigued, it receives a -1 in all dice rolls or actions until it recovers. To recover, an army can camp and do nothing for 1 initiative round, so that's 1 week in our campaign, or rally using 1 action. Regardless, the unit still stays fatigued until the next activation. So here is the action. So we have actions permitted. This is for the campaign. It's to move, it's group, it's permitted two actions per activation. If it's pushed, it's 2 actions. Group your armies is 1 action per activation. If it's pushed, it stays 1. Attack, charge attack will be permitted 1 per activation 1, but if you push your armies, you can do 2 if you force march them. Scout is 1 and 1, rally is 1 and 2, build siege engines is 1 and 2 if you push your armies. So now let's think about some movement restrictions. 1 normal move is 1 hex, so every movement action, the armies moves 1 hex and up to 2 hexes maximum. If the army is crossing a river, requires 2 actions, 2 moves to cross the river. Hexes with mountains and forests restrict the army from performing a 2nd move action in the same activation, but armies can't be attacked in the forest or the mountains, so it's like a safe haven, but you move slower. So let's see an example here. Royalist trained unit draws the Jack of Hearts for 2 actions. This is in card A. The army uses 1 of its actions to move 1 hex, and 1 of its actions to construct and mangonel. 1 action is required. So you see here in this B, he moves from this location where it's gray to the Castle Rising area. Now that the army general completed the 2nd action, he wants to attack the settlement. He has no actions left from the activation card, but he has not reached yet his max allowed actions of 3. He decides to push his army, making the army fatigued, but attacking the castle with a die roll of d6 -1 modifier. Here you see he's attacking Castle Rising with a -1. A mangonel hits with a +6. Now they need a +7, for example. Now, army supplies, something that is very important and quite simply done here in this campaign. If you can trace an uninterrupted line from your army to the closest friendly settlement, you have a continuous line of supplies. See picture below. So you see here is the army here on the top left in card A, and you have Royston. It's their own settlement. There is a yellow supply line, non-interrupted. You have no issues. Now, your opponent commander decides to block your line. He assumes that this is your line of supplies, and a yellow supply now it's blocked by enemy forces. in card B. But again, there is another free settlement that has an uninterrupted line here on the right with the red line, dotted line, so new red supply line re-established so you can continue being supplied. If this uninterrupted line is blocked by an enemy army, you have 3 days, 3 initiative phases to establish a supply line with another friendly settlement. Otherwise, on the 4th day, your army will be losing through desertion 10% of its strength daily and -1 morale permanently until you get provisions again. If you lose more than 50% of your troops, your army surrenders. If an enemy close by, if an enemy close by, otherwise it disbands. The troop making their way home the best they can. So siege rules. Siege, very important part of the game. Every settlement, depending on the level, will have a defense factor. So a village, small town with wooden buildings has a defense factor of 5, a wooden fort wall 15, a wooden gate and bastion 20, stone wall 18, stone wall and bastion 25. So for example, in order to demolish a town with wooden building and no other defenses, you need to score 5 hits. You must always have a line of supplies available during sieges, otherwise the same 10% army desertion will occur. So siege and siege engines. So we know how we destroy the defense factor of the settlement we are besieging. A besieger must construct siege engines to successfully hit and destroy enemy defenses. You may keep some siege engines you constructed, but you will move in a slower pace. Every type of siege engine requires a specific number of actions to be constructed, and each one has its own characteristics and strength as per below table. So a mangonel that you can keep, it's the smallest and easier to dismantle. You need 1 action to build it. It hits with a +4, and it damages +2 per hit. A catapult, you need 2 actions to build it. It hits with a +4 as well, but it damages with a -3. A trebuchet that you need 3 actions to complete it, to build it. You hit with a +5, but it damages with -5. So every hit you remove -2 from the strength of the defense factor of the building you're trying to destroy. So this is some information about mangonels and trebuchets. That's where I made this modifier. So obviously this will be a work in progress. Maybe we'll change something. Some information I found I was reading in the internet. I kept it here for my to take advice and see how the catapults will work. So every army can construct its own siege engines, even if they're besieging the same settlement. So let's say Army A spends 4 actions to conduct 2 catapults, and Army B spends 3 actions to construct 1 trebuchet. Army A will roll to hit with 2d10 because it has 2 catapults, and a roll of +4 for a -3 damage per hit. Or -2, I think it's -2. Army B will roll to hit 1d10 for a roll of +5 hitting, causing -5 damage per hit. Every time a structure is hit, reduces its strength as per the damage column of the siege engine chart. Now, health and provisions during a siege, another very interesting, and I try to make it quite interesting, not to make the siege boring, just rolling dice until you destroy the defense factor of the town. So to determine the food supply of participant as well as the reliability of the troops and the state of their health, the following 3 charts can be consulted at the beginning of a siege. All that is required is a standard deck of shuffled playing cards and a strong sense of impartiality. Draw a food and ammunition card for both attacker and defender and on the 4th turn and consult its table. Draw a health card for each side on the 8th turn and consult the table. And finally, draw an enlistment card for each side at the 10th day and consult the table. So 10th day, probably 10th week probably, or we'll do it like this if the turns are weekly. So let's have a look and see what these tables are. So we roll for food ammunition after 4 rounds. So if you draw an ace, 1 week food supply remaining. That means you have 1 week, 1 turn to finish the siege. Otherwise, it's finished. If you roll a 2, 2 weeks of food supply. If you roll a 3, 3 weeks of food supply remaining. If you roll a 4, 4 weeks supply remaining. That means on the 8th week you roll for a health chart, and that may change things. Roll a 5th, 2 weeks of ammunition remaining. If you roll a 6, 3 weeks of ammunition remaining, and from 7 to a king, food ammunition are enough. So by the first chart, the siege may finish earlier. So the first chart can change the siege circumstances, or you may be lucky and continue. It's quite a lot of numbers here in the cards that you can you can continue the siege. Now, if you reach the 8th round, now you roll the health card. So with an ace, you have smallpox. That's for both attacker and defender. That's minus 5% reduction in defense factor for the building, so whatever is remaining will be reduced by 5%, or a siege weapon effectiveness if it's the attacker. With the 2, you have cholera. So 10% reduction of defense, that means that, the defense value, the defense factor of the building, it's not actually only the stones and the bastions, it's the people who are defending. And the same, the siege weapon effectiveness, 10% of the current value. You have tainted water, 5% reduction. And for bubonic plague, 20% reduction of the defense factor or siege weapon effectiveness. 5 to king, all healthy for the duration of the siege. So this health card changes again the circumstances of the siege. Suddenly, you may be winning, you maybe have the chance of destroying, and suddenly you, as an attacker, draw a bubonic plague, and you have a siege weapon effectiveness reduction of 20%. So this is the siege changes like this. And if we reach at the 9th, 10th, all sieges last 9 turns maximum. Of course, if we manage to pass the previous 2 charts on the 10th turn, and the siege is resolved. If obviously the defense factor is reduced to 0, you don't need to reach at this stage. So on this enlistment card, the defender, if you roll an ace, the garrison surrenders after 50% of casualties. So if the defense factor is below 50% already, the garrison surrenders. If you roll a 2, all mercenaries present in militia desert after 1 week. So after 1 week, the siege ends. Low morale, so the defense factor is minus 10% of the current number. If you draw a 4, garrison surrenders after 25% casualties. So if you lost 25% of your defense factor, you immediately surrender. All mercenaries present and militia desert after 3 weeks. So you have another 3 to hold for another 3 weeks in order to win the siege. Garrison fights to the last man. They're very brave, so they get 10% plus to the defense factor and no effect from 7 to a king. The attacker, if he draws an ace, attacker stops siege after 50% casualties, so you have minus 2 damage factor. Attacker stops the siege in 1 week. E3, lower molar, siege engine damage, minus 3. Attacker stops siege after 25% of casualties. Attacker army deserts after 3 weeks, so you have 3 weeks. Attacker stops siege after 75% of casualties, minus 1 damage, and no effect on the siege. So these are things that these three tables make the siege very interesting and change it immediately. And it's not just a countdown of you rolling and saying, okay, minus 3, minus 4, I successfully hit. After 4 rounds, maybe the ammunition card will change totally the circumstances of the siege. If you manage to pass the ammunition card, the health card may change the balance of the power in the siege, and at the end, obviously, the enlistment card. So let's go for recruitment. Every town has a class, A, B, C, D, E, and you can recruit 500 man per year, 400 man, 300 man, etc., depending on the class. Once all replacements are sent, however, no more available for a year. This happens once a year at the end, once of campaign year at the end of the campaign. Now, fog of war. Fog of war is very important and something I'm very happy. It's very difficult to do it in a solo campaign, but I think here it works well. Every time, every army has a commander name, a morale number, size number, and types of units in the army. But your opponent and you will not be able to see these details. Both players will just see army counters moving without any information as per below screenshot. Commanders will be known. So here you see, you will see just the army counters. So for a player to request a scout report from his opponent, he must move at least 2 hexes away from the enemy army or nearer, spend 1 action and force a scout report from his opponent. So you see here we are the royalist forces. They find the rebel forces. They are 2 hexes away, so they ask for a scout report. The opponent has a choice to divulge either a number of troops, the army morale number, or the troop type without revealing the quality and the quantity, so like veteran, regular, green, for etc. So rebel commander decides to reveal the army size. So William de la Valelle III has 450 men. So how is the scouting report? Let's see. When asked by opponent to provide scouting report, you have the choice to reveal 1 of 3. Army information, size of the army, for example, 850 men, morale of the army, example 3, and units in the army, not numbers, only type, for example, spearmen, monks, and mounted sergeants. So after the battle, losing army rolls for reaction. If not destroyed during the battle, on the tabletop, you roll d6 and you check your reaction. Remaining position, so possibly attacked again if your opponent pushes more. Defensive formation, again attacked again, but you will be in defensive formation. Retire one move, retire one forced march to the rear, becoming fatigued. Retire 2 moves, or retire 2 moves forced march to any available direction, and you get a fatigue. That means -1, as we said before. So revolts, that's quite interesting, the revolts. So every settlement you besiege and you have, it's a simple method determining a revolt by rolling a die for each city. An odd number means a revolt, while an even indicates it remains loyal. So alternatively, you roll a die and consult this table below for each city based on how many years or months it's occupied. So I put basically, this is kind of weeks if you want. You can follow this odd number and even number, that's even simpler. But here, from 0 to 8 months, 9 to 17 months, 18 to 26 weeks, 27 to 34 weeks, etc. Because we're playing with weeks. And, we can do many campaigns because the campaign season will finish in the winter and then you can start a new campaign. So you see, if you roll a 1, there's no revolt. If you roll 2, it's a revolt in the settlements that are quite new under your command. 3, revolt is more difficult. 4, 5, 6, and as the months progress, as the weeks progress, the revolt is becoming less and less possible. The above timeline can change depending on the timeline of your campaign, so years can become months or weeks. Once a revolt occurs, the revolutionary force must be raised. The gamer may now find himself with 2 campaigns on his hands if the rebel decides to take advantage of his troops' absence by actively attacking the cities that remain loyal and have occupying garrisons. Revolts only for settlements of class A, B, and C, it's for my case. And this happens at the end of the campaign. So another mini campaign is created after you finish your campaign season, where you need to crush the revolts in your newly acquired cities. Then we're talking about mutinies. So during the course of a campaign, certain situations arise that are likely to cause discontent among the rank and file. An unpopular or incompetent commander can have a decidedly adverse effect on his command. A long string of defeats, retreats, or high casualties may also cause men to rebel. And being poorly fed, ill-supplied with basic necessities, or prohibited from engaging in what once considered the soldier's prerogative to rape and pillage can cause grumbling among the troops. Taken in minor quantities on an infrequent basis, these factors create discomfort, but are unlikely to cause an army mutiny. Taken in large doses, however, there is a greater likelihood that this force could reach its breaking point. To determine whether or not troops mutiny, it is necessary to keep an account of each of the above. Using 1 month as a basic length, or 1 week in our case, of time that the average man submits to a bad situation, keep a record on how long a force is poorly supplied. Note each time a force is rendered unsupplied and each time casualties are suffered as a result. So, for example, with the mutiny action, if you reach the mutiny, and you roll a 1, force disbands and deserts. You roll 2, force refuses to move and fight. You roll a 3, force joins an enemy, handing over their commander as prisoner. 4, force kills commander and follows sergeant. 5, force refuses to attack. And 6, force retreats on full strategic move to the rear. But how do we reach to this mutiny roll? Here it is. A point system is utilized to determine the force's mutinous spirit. A unit mutiny factor is equal to triple its morale factor. Once this factor has been reduced to 0, the force mutinies. So the mutiny factor is reduced to the following situations. -1 for each day unsupplied, -1 for each defeat suffered, -1 for each day spent in retreat, -1 for every 25% casualties suffered in battle, -2 for every 25% casualties suffered while unsupplied, -2 for being prohibited from pillaging. That's quite interesting. I'll show you. It provides a strategic decision. These penalties are also reserved when situations are altered for better. Increase the mutiny factor when the following situations occur, so you can get pluses instead of minuses. So +1 for each day supplied after not being supplied, +1 for each victory achieved, +2 for being able to pillage. Once a mutiny occurs, roll a die and consult the table above to determine how it manifests. If the mutineer's force has not deserted, it's possible to placate them by rectifying the conditions that led to mutiny. This includes replacing the commanding officer, getting them supplies, reinforcing them, permitting a bit of looting, or even shooting a lot. The army morale is the median of all troop morales. So let's see here how the mutiny factor, for example. The army of William the First, 4th Earl of Derby, has a morale of 3, thus the mutiny factor of 9. We said 3 times the mutiny. The morale is the mutiny factor. Let us assume that the William army lost 1 battle, retreated twice, stayed without supplies 2 turns, had 25% casualties during the battle, and allowed his troops to pillage a settlement. As per the above modifiers, William's mutiny factor is -1 for each defeat, -1 for each day spent, so minus in retreat, so -2, -1 for each day unsupplied, so -2, it was 2 days, -1 for every 25% casualties suffered in battle, and +1 for being able to pillage. So we have 9 - 6 + 3, it's 5. Still his troops are loyal to him because he hasn't gone to 0. So this is quite interesting. You need to do some bookkeeping. I think it's a very nice aspect of the campaign. So pillaging, a general can decide to occupy, that's very important, the settlement and gain supplies and recruits, or pillage a settlement that will give him victory points and obviously mutiny points, mutiny factor bonuses, but the settlement will always be an enemy settlement. Now the Thailand, we said, we probably can be a week, can be a day, can be a month, it's up to you, and you're winning the campaign by accumulating more victory points than your opponent or successfully completing objectives. So let's see a little bit now the settlements and how we have the settlement card that will be given to the players. So you see here, for example, you have settlement C, that is settlement game card. So this is troops supplied by the settlement. The settlement type for siege is wooden fort, wall with monastery. Settlement class is C. Victory points taken, if taken, is 2. Victory points taken if pillage is 4. Garrison size 40 man, defense value 15. Let's go to the other settlements. All these have the same characteristics. For example, let's go to the bigger ones. Wooden Gate and Bastion. These are the troops supplied. It's a settlement class B. Victory points if taken 3. If pillaged 4. Garrison size 60 man and defense value of 20. And the big settlements, Large Stone Wall and Bastion, is settlement class of A. Victory points if taken 4. Victory points pillage 6. Garrison 100 man and defensive value 25. Why we're talking about class A? You remember regarding the revolution at the end of the year, class A, B, and let's go back, C settlements will roll to see if they will revolt. Also, we have victory points for capturing commanders. If he's a lord, it's 5 victory points, 4 if it's killed. Baron, bishop, knight, and sergeant equivalent, you have points for capturing or killing them. So how you calculate the army calculation methods? So one infantry figure, this is calculated by skirmish baron war rules, 50 man. An infantry figure of sergeants and knights, 30 man. Mounted figure, 10 man. Monks, 10 man. And commanders figure 5 man were the bodyguards. So army morale calculation, green units have 1 morale point, irregular units 2 morale points. Just remember, this is for the map, for the strategic movement, not for the game, actually, the rules. Regular units 3 morale points, veteran 4, monks 4, sergeants 5, baron 6, lord commander 7, and king 8. So example here on your right, 2 irregular units of spearmen, 1 green unit of archers, 1 veteran unit of mounted knights and the Lord Commander, and 2 regular units of sergeants. As per the tables before, it's 1,735 men. And the army morale, you said, as I told you, is the calculation of all units morale. So you have 2 units, for example, of irregular spears. They have 2 plus 2, 2 by 2. Plus 1, plus 4, plus 7, and 2 by 3 here, because you have 2 regular units. Yeah, 3. You have 2 regular units. 2 by 3. So altogether is 3.143. So it's rounded up. If the result was 3.5, it's 4. So you take the median of the morale. So the green unit. So if you have 2 regular units of spearmen, so that has 2. So it's 2 by 2. It's 4 plus 1. For the green archers, plus 4 for the veteran mounted, plus 7 for the Lord Commander, plus 2 by 3 for the sergeants who are regular, equals 3.1. So it's the median. This is the types of units that will be portrayed on the battlefield. 2 options. I like this one on the right where you can see the face of the commander, but this one on the left also with a card is not bad. Here we have the units available for the forces, so knights, how many minis, and these forces for the rebel barons and for the royalists will be divided accordingly to commanders by the players. Hopefully I will play test with friends this soon. If you're interested, let me know. So here we have Rebel Barons. Here we have all the Rebel Barons that I'm using that can be available we'll discuss this in another video. And here are some how their commanders will look. Sir De Quincey, Earl of Winchester, Roger Bigod, 2nd Earl of Norfolk. These will be the generals of the armies. Depending on how they will divide the armies, the players will have 3, 4, 5 generals, and the others will be the substitutes if they die. The same here with Royalist Baron. Here's the barons who will play part, will support the Royalists. And here again are the generals who will be on the field of battle. Maybe depending on the strategy, maybe the Royalists will use 5 barons with smaller armies, or 3 with bigger armies, or they will have dummy armies. But the commanders that are not going to be used from these 3 will be commanders who will substitute if anybody dies or captures. Here we have some commander characteristics that I'm still working on, and this will be rolled by D10. There's 10 characteristics, so the commander can be cowardly, disciplined, a people's commander, natural reader, coerced, incompetent fop, heroic, rash, timid, and reliable. For example, people's commander, character is so popular, settlements of level 1 and 2 surrender without a siege. So something like this, that will give a bit spice up the game. Here is the commander's card, so you don't have to refer every time. So you have the name of the commander, the army morale 4, the army size 1015 man, mutiny factor of 12, and here are your units, so you know what you have, and his characteristic. He's a rash commander, for example. This will be for every commander, every general. It will be very easy to have this, all the information in one card. And here is the map, how it will be. The settlements I didn't put the different colors of the shields because it will getting too complicated. So all the commanders who are royalists are in this reddish shade, and Baron rebels in the bluish shade. These are the strongholds that they command. And this, as you can see here, as you can see here, are the commanders who will be moving. They can be combined, and the blue flags are for the rebels. The red flags are for the royalists. Here is a bishop, the king is here, and the movement will happen on the map. This is half of the map. So this is from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you stayed as that long. I think the rules, I don't know, I will playtest the rules. I hope you're interested in playtesting. We can do it in my Discord channel. There's no pressure. You can do it on your own time. You can tell me the moves. I can move around, give you the information. I think it's going to be fun. We can roll some dice. If you're interested, let me know. But if you guys manage to stay for the whole video, I would really appreciate your feedback on the rules, and if you think your opinions and any ideas. I think they are in a good, let's say, they are in the correct direction. So this is from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm expecting your feedback and any guidance. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.